As sunlight touches the craggy terrain, a small band of humans steps out from a limestone cave. Their day is already underway. Some are scanning the horizon for animals to hunt, while others gather sticks to feed the fire that never truly dies. But what truly occupied the hours of our Paleolithic ancestors? The classic cartoon of a caveman dragging a woman and swinging a club doesn't even begin to reflect the depth of their daily lives. So how did early humans spend their time when just staying alive was a full-time job? When we talk about cavemen, we're referring to people who lived during the Paleolithic era, stretching from about 2.6 million years ago to 12,000 years ago. That's over 99% of human history, long before farming, cities, or writing. Despite being so ancient, this era was anything but static. Enormous leaps in toolmaking, social behavior, and even art emerged during this time. Our knowledge of how they lived comes from various sources. Archaeological digs reveal stone tools, fire pits, food remains, and sometimes rare materials like fabric or carved wood. Cave paintings and portable art hint at their symbolic thinking. Modern-day studies of hunter-gatherer societies also help fill in the gaps, though we must be careful not to assume direct comparisons across such vast stretches of time. The Paleolithic experience wasn't one-size-fits-all. Life varied greatly depending on climate, geography, and time. For example, Homo habilis in Africa 2 million years ago lived very differently than the Cro-Magnons painting caves in France 20,000 years ago. Weather patterns shaped their daily routines. During the Ice Age, massive glaciers forced communities to adopt survival tactics very different from those in warmer environments. Some groups near rivers became skilled fishers. Others in forests or plains hunted and foraged based on their ecosystems. What all Paleolithic people had in common was a foraging lifestyle, hunting animals and gathering wild plants. So let's step back in time to explore how they filled their days and seasons. Their day started with the sun. Without artificial lights or clocks, they lived according to daylight, adapting to seasonal changes. Mornings typically began with reviving last night's fire. Evidence from sites like Terra Amata in France, dating back 380,000 years, shows well-maintained hearths used for warmth, protection, and cooking. Since making fire from scratch was difficult, people often kept embers glowing overnight. Early hours were reserved for tasks that needed light. The group would assess priorities. Was there enough food? Did tools need fixing? Were there any signs of animals nearby? Collecting water was a must, usually done using animal bladders, woven baskets, or eventually pottery from nearby springs or rivers. Instead of following strict routines, these communities lived in a cycle of immediate tasks and long-term preparation. Evidence from Gesher Benot Yaakov in Israel, dated to 800,000 years ago, shows a deep understanding of seasonal plant cycles, proof of careful planning. The day's main goals shifted with the seasons, but getting food was always the top priority. Men usually hunted larger animals, while women gathered plants and sometimes small animals, though this wasn't a fixed rule. Midday was often a time for eating, fixing tools, or resting during the heat. Hunters and gatherers returned in the afternoon, hopefully with food. Evenings were communal. People gathered around fires to share stories, plan, and bond. Hunting required great skill and teamwork. While early humans may have scavenged at first by 500,000 years ago, such as at Boxgrove in England, they were clearly hunting directly, as seen in spear-marked animal bones. Simple tools like hand axes evolved into more refined wooden spears, and by 30,000 years ago, spear throwers made hunting even more efficient. Bow and arrow technology appeared in some regions by 20,000 years ago, but hunting didn't always succeed. Gathering plants was usually more reliable. Studies of fossilized dental plaque reveal traces of many edible and even medicinal plants. Knowing where, when, and how to gather them required deep ecological understanding passed down through generations. Fishing also developed. Sites like Coster in Illinois, dated to 9,000 years ago, show evidence of nets and bone hooks. The seasons dictated dietary rhythms. Spring was for greens and eggs, summer for berries and hunting, autumn for nuts and winter prep. And winter often meant relying on stored food. Though they lacked refrigeration, many preserved food by drying or freezing. Underground pits and cold environments helped keep supplies edible. The Paleolithic diet was actually more varied and nutritious than early farming diets. Bone analysis shows fewer deficiencies than in later agricultural societies. One game changer was cooking. Evidence suggests fire was used for cooking at least 400,000 years ago, perhaps earlier. Cooking made food safer, easier to digest, and more energy-rich. Tool-making was another key part of life. It wasn't an occasional activity, it was ongoing. Stone tools dulled with use and had to be sharpened or replaced. Simple tools could be made quickly, but advanced ones took time and skill. The evolution from crude flakes to beautifully shaped hand axes and the levallois technique shows growing craftsmanship. By the Upper Paleolithic, starting around 50,000 years ago, people created specialized tools, burins for engraving, scrapers for hides, and points for hunting. They also used wood, bone, antler, and ivory, materials often missing in the archaeological record due to decay. Still, discoveries of carved spears and harpoons show their ingenuity. Containers made from natural materials later evolved into baskets and eventually early pottery around 20,000 years ago. Clothing evolved too. During colder times, they tanned hides, used bone needles to stitch, and adapted garments to harsh conditions. As for housing, the caveman image is only partly true. While caves were used, especially in harsh climates, they were rare and mostly seasonal homes. Many communities built shelters from wood, bones, and hides. Sites like Terra Amata show remains of wooden huts. In Ukraine, 15,000-year-old structures made from mammoth bones show clever engineering. Inside these shelters, space was organized, fire at the center with separate areas for sleeping, tool making, and food prep. Homes needed upkeep, fires maintained, damage repaired, and waste removed. Some sites even reveal ancient trash dumps, showing early sanitation practices. Child rearing was woven into daily life. Unlike modern childhood, Paleolithic kids likely participated in chores early on. Hygiene is harder to trace, but evidence from modern hunter-gatherers suggests regular practices like dental cleaning and bathing in nearby water sources. Sick or injured individuals were not abandoned. Several skeletons show healed serious injuries, indicating care and community support. Socially, bands of 20 to 30 people, often extended families, formed the basic unit, but they weren't isolated. Artifacts found far from their sources suggest long-distance trade and contact between groups. Food sharing, storytelling, and communal rituals reinforced social bonds. Evidence from places like Dolní Věstonice in the Czech Republic points to large-scale gatherings and even feasting. Art and music were central to life. From ochre in South Africa to the cave paintings of Europe, artistic expression flourished. Musical instruments like bone flutes from Germany, over 43,000 years old, suggest a rich musical culture. Healing practices and perhaps spiritual beliefs existed too. Plant remains with medicinal value have been found, and hybrid human-animal figures in cave art hint at possible shamanistic traditions. Though violence existed, injuries caused by conflict are relatively rare, especially compared to later societies. Smaller populations and rich resources likely reduced competition. Ultimately, the Paleolithic way of life was the most enduring and adaptive phase in human history. These people navigated drastic climate shifts and colonized every continent but Antarctica. What lessons can we learn from them? First, Paleolithic people were proactive environmental stewards, using fire to shape ecosystems and selectively managing resources. Second, they had vast generalist knowledge about nature, tools, and survival. Third, their tools, though simple, were refined solutions developed over generations. Most importantly, this era marked the birth of art, abstract thought, and symbolic culture, what we define as human. The Paleolithic was not a dark prelude to civilization, but a thriving, sustainable, and deeply human way of life. So what did they really do all day? They solved problems. They hunted and gathered. They invented tools. They shared stories. They taught their young. They built homes, made music, created art, and supported each other. They were adaptive, innovative, and profoundly connected to the natural world. And perhaps they weren't so different from us after all.